Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 178 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, we are talking about how to create a culture of leaders, a culture of go-getters, a culture of team members that will step up to the plate, that are ready to take your burden, your tasks that you are don't have time to do, that are not high priority, things that you don't like to spend your time doing. How can you create a culture where other people in your organization are stepping up and taking over these tasks? I think that is something that a lot of us as small business owners are very interested in figuring out and have had a lot of frustrations dealing with in terms of not knowing how to offload tasks and getting frustrated when tasks don't get kind of owned, so to speak, by the people that we want to own those tasks. So before I dive into today's episode, I have kind of a apology to make and a reflection to make in terms of this episode. If you're one of the people that is listening to this on a weekly basis, you'll notice that today's episode did not get uploaded early in the morning on Wednesday. I had completed this episode late yesterday afternoon. I had it uploaded to YouTube and was in the process of trying to get all of the finalized written content so that I could upload the episode. And as I ran out of time yesterday, I realized that I had not put enough work and preparation time into the episode as it was getting ready to be published. And while every episode that I do is far from perfect, there was a true lack of preparation, lack of thought that went into the episode as it was getting ready to be uploaded yesterday. So there's a delay in this getting released. And again, from my perspective, two lessons learned. First of all, procrastination typically is a bad way to operate. Many of us as lawyers live and die by that procrastination model. And for me, that created a lack of preparation and a lack of being ready in terms of timeliness to get this thing uploaded up on time. So again, need to step up the preparation and eliminate procrastination. To me, this is a really important learning tool, not only for those of you that are listening, for our team that uses this as an educational tool, but for me personally, this has been such an amazing way for me to improve my practice in the courtroom and to improve as a person and business owner, leader. It's been an incredible way for me to level up. And so I realize you got to put in the time if you're gonna expect people to listen, and if I'm gonna expect to get out of it what I'm hoping to get out of it personally, got to put in the prep time. Other leadership lesson that I learned was, again, this sense of you got to really put in a worthwhile product and not only be prepared from a time perspective, but really be attention to detail oriented in terms of the quality of what we're trying to do. So again, just self-reflection and apology for not getting this put out there on time. 178 episodes in, I think there's only a handful of episodes, 2 or 3, that have not gotten published on time. And again, full responsibility on my end for not doing that. And we'll we'll try to get a little bit more ahead of the curve here moving forward, so that the product can remain high quality. So today we're talking about creating a culture of leaders, a culture of go-getters. And let me kind of just lay out the problem. I think so many of us, when we have somebody on the team, especially if it's a new hire or our first hire, we are juggling all the balls. We're trying to keep all the spinning plates up in the air. And there is this sense that, I need somebody to come in and take some of these plates off of me. I need somebody to come in and juggle some of these balls. And when that new team member comes in and doesn't immediately start kind of spinning the plates or take some of the balls out of the air that we are juggling, there is this incredible frustration. And there is this incredible sense of, why have I hired this person? I hired this person to make my life easier. And now not only are all of the balls that I had before still up there, but now I've got this new ball, which is, an employee that I feel this sense of urgency to keep busy, and I've got to train. And, there's seems like there's not this lack of understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. And so I wanted to take a step back and more from a big picture perspective. I think that there may be some specific lessons to onboarding that we're not going to get into so much today, but how do you create a culture where the balls are kind of automatically being plucked out of the air for you, and where the spinning plates are actually just taken away without you even asking? How do you create a culture where other people are stepping up to the plate? And this episode really stemmed from yesterday. We had one of our relatively new employees at the office, Emily Ramirez, do a presentation on intake and our intake processes. And she has really stepped into this role. She's only been here now for a few months, and she's really stepped into this role of kind of intake, overseeing our intake, and really been intentional about how we can improve our intake processes. And her presentation yesterday on intake was just masterful. It was so incredibly insightful into ways to respond to incoming calls, kind of frequently asked questions or statements, and how to kind of read between the lines. It was one of those things that I've done this now for graduated from law school 2009, opened the practice in 2010. I've done a lot of intake myself. I have tried to improve our intake processes, and some of the things that she's been able to decipher here in just a few short months were just so insightful in terms of, oh, that's what that phrase means when, this person calls in. For instance, one of the things that she pointed out, and again, there were so many points like this yesterday, but one of the things that she pointed out is that if somebody calls in and says, they told me I need a lawyer, for me, I would normally just be like, oh, okay, that's just something that a person says when they call in. Who cares? Let's get to the bottom of what you're charged with and figure out what's going on. She has been able to decipher in just a few short months that when somebody calls in and says, they told me I need a lawyer, normally that means that they have a missed court date, that they've somehow contacted the clerk's office who said, hey, you've missed court on this. You're going to need a lawyer to get this reset. You're going to need a lawyer for this speeding ticket or whatever the situation might be in order to kind of get it addressed. You can't just, now come in and take care of it. There's a order for arrest that is issued, failure to appear, whatever it might be. So this, again, kind of meaningless phrase to me, she was communicating, if you're hearing this, don't necessarily expect them to be able to search in ACES or to search in NC courts for this person's court date because likely they've missed court. So, here are the follow-up questions to that statement from the potential client. So there was just all kinds of great insights yesterday that were passed along, really masterfully done. And so again, for somebody that's just been here for a few short months, it was one of those things where it just created this kind of reflection moment on my end of how do you create a culture where people are kind of stepping up to the plate, not just coming in and getting trained to do intake, but in a very short period of time, trying to lead the charge in terms of improving the process, as Emily has done so well here in such a short period of time. So I have kind of thought through 5 ways to create a culture of go-getters, a culture of leaders, a culture of people that are, ready to take some of those balls out of the air for you, to take some of those spinning plates that you have up on sticks off of your load. And again, not doing it only because you've kind of asked or tried to transition some of those plates, but are actually snatching balls out of the air so that you don't have to continue juggling those, even when you're not concerned about it, even when you're not trying to get those balls off of your plate. So number one way to create a culture of leadership, and this is something that I so often go back to, is begin with why. That philosophy background, that undergrad philosophy degree, this is really present. It's, the first episode that I ever did was begin with why, in terms of the culture of your firm. Begin with why. It's really important for us to start in that space. Now, whether you're in the interview process with a potential team member, whether you're in the onboarding phase of bringing them into the team, or if this is somebody that's been at your office for years, during regular meetings, you need to explain and communicate why your firm acts the way it does. You need to explain your mission, your core values as a firm to that potential teammate, to that new teammate, to that long-term teammate, because this is what provides the ability, the decision-making ability of that teammate to act. If they know the big picture of here's where we are going, here's why we are going there, here's what our mission is to the outside world, here's our identity as an organization, this is the values that we live by. Now there is a decision-making matrix that has been laid out for that team member so that they really can take ownership of problems. Oh, I know that we're constantly trying to improve the client experience. So we should script for this new type of charge during intake with this language versus this language. If you've explained your core values, if you've explained why you're doing it, that is really going to give, again, the ownership of a potential problem much more clearly to that new teammate. They're going to have a framework for how to act. As Simon Sinek so often says, people don't care what you do, they care why you do it. And this is true for your own team. I would say almost more important. He's generally speaking about that in the sense of the potential client doesn't care what you do, they care why you do it. This is why branding through storytelling is so powerful, as we're going to talk about a lot at the Freedom Fighter Summit coming up here in a couple of months. But people don't care what you do, they care why you do it. But that's true of your own team. That's true of your own employees. This is the most critical function to me in terms of a leader at the office, is being able to communicate the vision. And by communicating the vision, that includes communicating the mission, communicating the core values of your firm to the people who are going to need to act on that. And so Something that we've done more recently is during our interviews with potential teammates, I will spend a good amount of time communicating who we are as a firm, and not just our practice, that we're a criminal defense firm in North Carolina, but here's what our mission is: to help good people in their darkest hour. Here's what how the role of intake, or how the role of new attorney helps us to serve that mission. Here's what you're going to be doing in your role that will basically make other people's lives better. And I communicate our core values. These are the things that are important to us. And part of the reason for doing that is to paint a picture of here's kind of where we are going. But more importantly, I want new teammates to kind of have a sense of who they're, does our core values align with you as a person? Because we are very much hiring at this point on a value system, an aligned value system, versus hiring on a skill set. Hiring on a skill set, we feel like pretty much for most of the roles that we are hiring in for, the skills can be learned, whether it's the courtroom skills, the office skills, a lot of the communication skills, those things can be learned. But if we don't have an alignment of values, we're going to bring somebody into the team that is not going to be, as it's kind of traditionally referred to, as a good culture fit. And that's what we don't want to have happen, because you can put a lot of time and energy into training somebody on the skill set. And if they're not a good culture fit, it is likely not a relationship that is going to last, or even if it does, is going to be damaging to the overall health of the team and the health of that individual person as well. So number one, begin with why. During your interview, during your onboarding process, spend the time. When you've got a new employee that comes in your office, spend the time to sit down with them on day one that they come into the office and say, I know we talked about this a little bit during the interview, but I want to tell you a little bit of the history of our firm, a little bit about why we are so committed to aggressive criminal defense and the rights of the people that we are seeking to help. And here's, what is important to us as a team. Here's what our work-life balance looks like. To really go through that and communicate your value system, that is going to give, again, the matrix for decision-making to that new or potential team member, to really be able to say, okay, if I am in a situation where I need to make a call, I have a value set that is going to allow me to act. Hey, podcast listeners, I want to briefly interrupt today's episode to invite you to join me at the inaugural Freedom Fighter Summit in Asheville this October. This in-person only event is designed for growth-minded lawyers determined to take their criminal defense practice to the next level. Due to the size of the summit's venue, there are a limited number of seats available. Don't miss out on the incredible lineup of speakers and spectacular networking opportunity that this summit provides. For more details, visit www.miniclaw.com/summit. Enter the promo code NCDWIGUY, all lowercase, all one word, at checkout for $150 off your summit ticket. Look forward to seeing you there. Now back to the show. Number two, shift the cognitive load. If you want to create a culture of leaders, if you want to create a culture, as Jocko Willink would say, of extreme ownership, you have to shift the cognitive load. You can't always provide the answer to the team member. You want them to own this situation. You want them to own the potential problem. And I think so often, as owners, especially of new hires or first hires, we don't do a good job of shifting the cognitive load. Instead, we're basically constantly trying to teach and train and show here's how you do something. And anytime there is a question asked, we get frustrated. We get, why is this person not able to, handle this situation or respond to this call? We don't necessarily do a great job of shifting the cognitive load. Now, I heard this term, shifting the cognitive load, from a great local trial attorney here in Asheville. And the way that he kind of describes this as, in the litigation process, if you get asked a question, basically the one way that you can respond to that is just to answer the question. The other way is to kind of put the cognitive load back on the person asking the question. So if, let's say in a DWI trial, you ask a question such as, my client told you, Officer Smith, that he had double knee replacements, had hip issues, and really had a difficult time walking, had broken multiple bones in his feet, whatever it might be. And yet you asked him to do the walk and turn test and the one leg stand. Do you think that's fair? Now, that's a great question. If you're a defense lawyer, this fair question. Anthony Palacios brought this up at the, he called it the 4-letter F word, but he brought this up at the NCAJ convention in June, of, really pushing this kind of fairness question. I think it's a great question to ask. Now, a savvy officer on the stand in this situation could shift the cognitive load by asking, what do you mean by fair? That puts down the cognitive load back onto the defense lawyer asking the question. And, as the defense lawyer, you can say, hey, I'm the one asking the questions here. You need to answer my question, best of your ability. Or you might get somebody that says, well, fair according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary is this, or, well, what do you think fair means? So you as the attorney could then shift the question back to the officer and say, what do you think fair means? So there's this back and forth of the shifting of the cognitive load, but that is a great strategy in terms of putting the burden, putting the mental load back on the other person. And so when we have a team member that brings us a problem, normally, I think we think as the leader, oh, well, I've got to tell them here's how we do things. This is the solution, and this is the way that we should do business. And if there is a simple answer to it, this is not some sort of a kind of meaningless mental exercise. Like if you have good feedback to provide, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, you want to provide good feedback. But if a team member comes to you with a problem, hey, I have this client who, is repeatedly calling and wants an answer on this situation. Pronto says that they need to call back. One thing that you can do in response to this, a way that Cy Wakeman, who I've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast, shifts the cognitive load back to people on her team as she asks, what would great look like in this situation? What would being a great teammate look like in this situation? What would being a great lawyer look like in this situation? What would a great client experience look like in this situation? Shift the cognitive load back to the person coming into your office with that issue, so that then they become the owner of that problem. They become the one that is empowered to take action, to make a decision regarding that problem. Again, this is not to just basically, again, put a problem back on somebody else's shoulders, but generally speaking, if you want other people in the organization to become go-getters, if you want other people on your team to step up and take ownership of a situation, you have to give them permission to do that. And one of the easiest ways to give permission is to shift the cognitive load. What do you think we should do in this situation? How do you think we should respond to that? How do you think we should create that script for this particular item? What do you think our team huddle should be about this week? By putting that cognitive load back in the individual, you're giving them ownership of the problem. You're giving them ownership of the situation. So we really, I think, could do a better job, generally speaking, as leaders, being intentional about shifting the cognitive load back to other people on the team so that they can step up. Number three, you want to encourage and plan for interruption. So again, last one is shifting the cognitive load. Just as important, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is providing feedback. This is something that I really think we do a super poor job of as small business owners generally. And I've talked to a number of criminal defense law firm owners that get so frustrated. And I've experienced this in early days of practice of you hire somebody because you've got so many fires to put out, you're juggling so many balls, you hire them to come in and you think do a very simple task. But then you basically have zero time to train this person. You have zero time to respond to questions, very legitimate questions that they have about how to perform this particular role. And so what do we do in those situations most of the time? Instead of giving meaningful feedback and providing appropriate training in that role, we just basically say, get out of the way. Let me do this myself. We don't necessarily say that out loud, but that's what we're thinking. We think, man, this was so much easier when I was just doing this myself. I'm just going to do it. Now we have somebody that we are paying, to sit at a desk and not do the work that we hired them to do because we don't have the time, or we think we don't have the time to train that person. So we're now doing that role. But now there's this added anxiety of, oh my gosh, I've got this person sitting here and they're not doing anything because they're, incompetent or whatever it might be. And generally speaking, this is just a lack of availability, a lack of training. So you have to, as a leader, expect that people that you have brought into your organization to help you in whatever role you've hired them in to request feedback. And you want to encourage that request for feedback. If you want people to take ownership of a problem, then one way of doing that is to make sure that they know that if they're looking for some feedback about how to proceed, about which way to move forward, about the direction, that they can come to you, get that feedback, and then go make that thing happen. So I think one of the issues, again, for us as busy lawyers, we're running from county to county, district court to district court, we're making phone calls, we're putting out fires constantly. One of the difficult things is when we have a team member that walks into the office with a question, you want to make sure that that person knows, hey, it's okay to bother me. It's okay to knock on my door. It's okay to ask a question. Because otherwise they just think, well, I've got to kind of figure this out on my own. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so either maybe they make the wrong call about that. They don't take any action and they just leave this, this issue for another day, and the problem continues to fester. But so often I think when somebody comes into our office, it's like, oh my gosh, here's another distraction from my important work. This is a burden on my schedule. This is a problem in my life now, a violation of my sacred time and space. And instead, if you can flip the mindset of, anytime a team member walks into your office looking for feedback or wants to discuss how to move forward with a problem as an opportunity, great. This person is coming into the office. We will work through this problem. And now that person knows how to handle this problem as it's, right in front of our face, but we'll know how to handle the same situation the next time. We'll know how to handle a similar situation the next time. Maybe it's a little bit different, but based on the feedback that I've just given, now they can take ownership of that. If you want balls going out of your sphere of influence and into somebody else's, giving that feedback so they say, okay, this is how we do things. I'm ready. I'm cool with it. I'm ready to run with it. If you've got inquisitive people that are looking for direction, that is amazing. I think that there's plenty of times when a new team member isn't asking for feedback. And that is more of a concern on my end, because if you're not asking for feedback where you need it, again, there's probably not action and initiative getting taken to solve that problem or similar problems. So you have to encourage asking for feedback. There's been times with multiple people on our team when they'll say, "Hey, Jake, I know you're really busy. So I hate to bother you." And I try as best as I possibly can to say, each and every time I hear that, "Hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be bothered. I am here to give feedback, to get your questions answered, to provide, whatever, I may not have the answer, but if, I'm happy to have the conversation and see what we can do about this situation." You've got to encourage people on your team to request feedback, to look for feedback. You also have to plan for that interruption. I think so often why we see this as a burden is, we don't have time in our busy schedule planned for teammate interruptions, and they're going to happen. So whether you're just kind of prepared for that mentally of, I'm going to get interrupted today, and that's awesome. That's an opportunity for us to improve as a culture. Or you basically schedule a time to sit down with people on your team every week and say, okay, what problems are we dealing with? What clients need action on my end? What do you need me to do to kind of help you better understand what we're trying to do in this role that you're in? Encouraging that time for feedback. One of the things that we've done recently on our intake team, again, is we created an intake chat on our Google chat. And so one of the channels is for the intake team to ask questions. And it's so awesome because we now have, 10 attorneys that can kind of almost instantaneously provide feedback to a question that an intake team member has about, hey, I got this particular charge. Is, what is this charge? Or, I've got this call from this client. What kind of case does this fall within what we are doing? Immediately you get people, whether it's on the admin team or attorneys, somebody else on the team, almost responding instantaneously to that question. We want to encourage people to get feedback so that we can get faster at responding to the client. The longer it takes for that feedback loop to occur, the less likely it is that the team member seeking feedback is going to request it, because they know that this client needs an answer to their question right now. And if the feedback loop takes 48 hours, it's kind of like, well, this person is just going to go find somebody else to deal with their situation anyways. So that feedback loop has to get faster and faster. We've got to be able to give teammates the ability to get feedback. I think an open door policy on this front is great in terms of somebody that's looking for help. But if that isn't conducive to how you operate, you at least have to plan for opportunities for feedback to get extended. Number 4. So number 3, encourage and plan for interruption. Number 4, encourage mistakes. So critical, right? I think we all speak lip service to this. So like, oh, it's okay to make a mistake. Don't worry about it. But encourage people to make mistakes. Making mistakes leads to innovation, to creativity, to experimentation. You have to be able to make mistakes in order to make advancements. Almost all of the best innovations at our firm have come as a result of me falling on my face. Almost all of the great technology innovations, ways that we handle things at the office have come as a result of a fire, have come as a result of a problem. And so we're like, okay, we don't want to experience that again. Let's change the way we do it. And this way, our process is better. It's not where this isn't going to slip through the cracks. We'll be able to get information into the client's hands faster by doing it this way. So often I personally almost all of what we've done at the office, success-wise, has resulted from a mistake. And so you want to encourage other people on the team to make mistakes so that you collectively can learn from those same lessons. You hear the comments saying like, don't be a helicopter parent. Well, don't be a helicopter employer either. I think that, these micromanagers are helicopter parents in the office. That's what a micromanager is. And I think so many of us are so dang nitpicky of like, it's got to look this way. And we've got to do things this way. And it's okay to have a system. It's okay to have a process, but recognize, as Michael Gerber says in the E-Myth, that systems run the business, but people run the systems. Systems run the business, people run the systems. And people running the systems means that people get to change, create, innovate, experiment with the systems. People are the ones in control of your systems. And if you're a micromanager, what that means is the systems are never going to change until I change them. Things are never going to be toyed with until I tell you it's okay to toy with them. And that creates a culture of stagnation, a culture where change is not going to occur. And, again, sometimes change comes in the form of a mistake, something that wasn't supposed to happen, but so often change comes in the form of a improvement. And so we want to encourage that experimentation, that innovation, if we want to have go-getters at the office. If we want to have people that are leaders at the office, you want to encourage people to fall on their face and be like, okay, well, that didn't go great. Let's figure out a way to do it better. One of the ways that we do this at the office, again, in the chat room that we have, I just mentioned that one of our chats is for the intake team. Another one of our chat rooms is for wins and learns, as we call them. Not wins and losses or wins and mistakes, but wins and learns. And the learns side of that, so the wins are, hey, share a win and why you think it happened. What led to this great win in the courtroom, so that other people on the team can be like, oh, that makes sense as to why that success occurred, because of all this prep work that went into that case or into that situation. Here's why that win resulted. So, hey, now I can learn from that. But the learns side of the wins and learns chat room is really, when we make a mistake, let's share it and let's communicate to the best of our knowledge why things did not go well and what the plan is to improve in the future, and put it out there for other people to suggest improvements for, hey, here's what you could maybe try next time to hopefully avoid that situation. The goal in terms of sharing mistakes isn't just for some like public lesson in humility. This is an opportunity for learning. Don't miss out on that. Capitalize on that opportunity to learn. Again, to me, the best lessons come from failures. And so why not capitalize on that as a collective? Why not try to learn as a group from another person's failure? It's so important, I think, to capitalize on that. So encourage mistakes. When you have your onboarding process, tell that to the new team member. Hey, we're going to make mistakes around here. It's okay. Everybody does. Share that, seek out help, figure out what we can do about the situation. Don't try to cover it up. Don't try to ignore it. If you see something that's not working right, bring that out. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation about it. You've got to encourage mistakes in your organization. Number 5, make sure that you extend positive praise when you see leaders step up. So this is the last one. And if you want to encourage a organization of leaders and go-getters, then when you see somebody taking ownership of a problem, when you see somebody stepping into a role that didn't exist before, or, innovating the system, or asking, hey, why don't we create a process for doing this? Do you mind if I create a form for this thing? It seems like it happens quite a bit. Hey, why don't we have a operating manual so that, or a training manual so that somebody that new on the team, maybe I don't have to like sit down and show that person how things work. I've created this manual. Anytime that you see somebody stepping into a role, stepping up their game, getting after it by creating a process, a form, a way of doing things, absolutely go out of your way to praise that behavior. If you want to create a culture of leaders and go-getters, make sure that you are extending praise to do that. At our office, we use a app called Bonusly, which is basically a really great rewards program. Every member on the team gets a certain amount of points each month that then can be spent on gift cards to a whole slew of different businesses and true kind of reward system. But all of the positive praise, or you can only award points to other team members. All of the positive praise gets is reinforcing our core values, our mission, or our brand promises. So it's all reinforcing the types of behavior that are central to who we are as a organization and as a team. And so again, whatever your reward system looks like, whether that's, praising somebody in a team huddle, if you have only one other person at the office and there's no like public praise, really, so to speak, in terms of other team members to honor that person in front of, make sure that if that person is stepping up, you don't just ignore that or let that go to the wayside. Say, hey man, this was so awesome. Thank you so much for stepping up and creating this form. This is great. This is really going to change the way that we do things. If you see anything else like this that could be improved, please feel free to do that. If you offer that positive praise, you are going to get people to respond and say, hey, good feedback. And again, from the team member side of things, it's like, this is a good feedback loop. I know that I am making the right changes or right suggestions. And it just feels good to get that praise, whether it is private or public. So don't waste that opportunity to extend praise if you want to create a culture of leadership. So to me, the magic of our office is our team. We are so blessed at our firm by the people that are working here. It really is what makes things special. It's what makes our the way that we do business special, is the way that it's delivered through human beings. So it's the people at the office that make what we do magic. And so, hopefully this will allow you to kind of extend some of that same magic in your own organization and take your team and your firm to the next level. Look forward to speaking with you again next time.